During lockdown, we changed the way we think about food.
There's a lot of families that have newly come into hardships.
Supermarkets struggled.
Fresh food started to become a challenge. And then we got into things like tins and packets.
And eating out was ruled out.
Tried to take the positive that it would only be for a few weeks. Those few weeks turned into a few more weeks, and it's been really scary times.
Tonight on Panorama, 5 months into the crisis, we've got new habits.
People are enjoying eating together as a family.
There are new opportunities.
We have our own retail milk round, so, it has really been quite a lifesaver.
But have we changed the way we eat?
Hopefully, one of the positive outcomes of this is that people will buy more of our products locally.
This is Booths.
Thank you, that's great.
Ready to go.
Lovely.
With 28 stores across the northwest, the family-owned supermarket has had an eventful few months.
We were struggling, as were many others, to actually get hold of some really basic provisions.
Coronavirus has had a huge impact. From customers queuing just to get inside, to staff struggling to keep the shelves stocked.
It all started with things like toilet roll and hand sanitizer, as we'll remember.
The fear of shortages meant that when COVID first hit, many of us started stockpiling.
Fresh food started to become a challenge. But fresh foods recovered really quite quickly. And then we got into things like tins and packets.
Back in the month of March, grocery sales hit an all-time high, amounting to £10.8 billion. That's even higher than the Christmas rush. And now we are still buying more groceries than before. In July, sales were 14.6% up on the same time last year. The market for non-perishables did particularly well. In the first 12 weeks, we spent 38% more on dried pasta.
Overall, did Booth do quite well out of this?
It's a mixed picture. So yes, we're selling more tins of things and more packets of things, there's no doubt about that. And so there were ups and downs.
And the ups were helped by the fact that supplies into supermarkets continued, in part because as a nation, we were still able to import food.
We're in a much, much better place now than we clearly were a few weeks ago.
And perhaps a different place too.
Rise in the popularity of home baking. We sell a 3-kilogram flour now. We'd have never done that before.
The pandemic seems to have had an impact on the food we want to buy.
There are more core ingredients being bought, so people are obviously spending more time in the kitchen creating for themselves.
Within weeks of being locked down, a third more of us were using our time at home to cook from scratch.
People have found the ability to bake again, so goodness knows what our waistlines are going to look like.
Come on.
Sue Pritchard is leading an independent inquiry set up to help shape a more sustainable future for food and farming.
What we seem to be learning is that people are appreciating the importance of food in their lives much more. They're enjoying eating together as a family, if they're in a position to do so, and they're enjoying taking time over food, or discovering it for the first time has brought a richness and a colour to their lives around food, around the joy of food and the place of food that they had not necessarily known before. People are telling us that they don't want to give that up.
How do you think the supermarkets performed?
Well, at the start, the supermarkets were caught out, but they did manage to pivot. It took a little while. They collaborated, worked together in ways that they have not done, not had to do for decades, if ever, actually, and managed to recover from that position after a few weeks.
For For Sue, the main reason so many supermarkets were caught out was because of the way they work with their suppliers. It's known as a just-in-time system, meaning most only have enough storage space for one day's supply of fresh produce.
Why has it been so appealing to supermarkets to have that system?
It's hugely cost effective. It means the risk of keeping stocks being held elsewhere. So if you're not having to spend a lot of money on big warehouses, or if you're not buying the products you're going to sell until you absolutely need them, you're able to manage cash flow. So it's very efficient for the supermarkets, but it just means that risk is held elsewhere in the system. And we saw in Corona that it's suppliers, the producers and customers who are managing that risk.
But supermarkets have had other risks they've had to manage. One of the biggest around safety. The safety of customers, of course, and the safety of staff too. Supermarket workers, in fact staff across the whole of the food industry, have been on the front line throughout the pandemic. Their work so important to our health and well-being that they are recognised as key workers.
Isn't it slightly inevitable that not just here, but across the food chain, if you like, the importance of food meant some people had to take risks to keep us fed?
Oh, they absolutely did. So if you think about the advice from the government at the time was if you can work from home, work from home. Clearly in a supermarket environment or a food production environment, you cannot do that. So we did ask, and we knew very consciously we were asking our people to put themselves at the forefront of the need to feed communities. So, one of the things we did is make sure that we paid a bonus to our people who came into work because they were doing just that.
At many stages of the supply chain, there have been risks to the people working to keep the rest of us fed. In food production, they've been particularly vulnerable, with significant outbreaks of the virus reported in food factories and processing plants, where staff have long periods spent working closely together indoors. Farmers have been determined to stay afloat, safely.
This is one of our fields of mint. This is a Spanish variety that we grow. Morning, Marianne.
Good morning.
Good orders today?
This is Valley Produce in Berkshire. Here they grow, pick and pack vegetables and herbs for supermarkets and the hospitality industry.
The majority of our staff are seasonal labour from various European countries, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Latvia, Romania.
Just come here for money, for better life. And that's it. I'm being tested before come here. Everyone were coming with me and being tested for coronavirus.
Tom is one of 26 Bulgarians now living on site.
We've taken our guidance from the government and we've instigated a 14-day quarantine of all new arrivals onto the farm. There's a lot of people arriving at this time of year, coming to work in the fields, etc. So we've had to hire in caravans for accommodation earlier than we normally have. We've had to split them into two groups because they've arrived at different times. We've had to separate them in terms of their kitchen accommodation and their living accommodation.
Tom has completed his period of isolation and is living in this caravan alongside a fellow worker.
Where do you cook?
And the kitchen over there. It's for all caravans. It's 2 kitchens on the back on that caravans.
In common with many vegetable farms, this one has had to weather the ups and downs of the last few months. Whilst the demand for fresh farm produce for supermarket shelves has grown, the impact of lockdown on restaurants, cafes and takeaways has created real uncertainty.
It's had a significant financial impact on our business, just through loss of trade, loss of customers. We overnight lost about 40–45% of our weekly turnover, which as yet hasn't come back.
During the 3 months of lockdown, we ate 352 million fewer meals out than we would normally. Trips to restaurants and cafes all but disappeared.
Oh, come on in. Oh, come on.
Here in Leicestershire, Alan Smith has built up a 475-strong herd producing milk that he sells mostly into the hospitality supply chain. But relying on demand from planes, trains and coffee shops meant he was in trouble. And like many farmers, was forced to pour milk down the drain.
The business in the last 2 or 3 months, Tom, has been absolutely dire. I don't think anybody in the dairy will have ever known it as bad as it has been for the last 8-10 weeks.
Between April and May, the cost to the dairy industry was an estimated £28 million.
We started milking around 3:30 this morning. The milk was being bottled straight away after we were milked.
Alan has managed to refocus his business
On this farm, we have our own retail milk round.
and turn it round.
So the people of Leicester today will be getting milk that was produced today to be delivered today. So they're getting milk that is less than 12 hours old.
The amount of milk he's selling locally from these Jersey cows has gone up by about 30%, and he gets a much better price for it than the milk he sells to the normal dairy contract.
It's a way of securing income for the farm. We get paid all the time. We're getting regular payments. So, you know, it has really been quite a lifesaver.
And it's been a lifesaver for his customers too.
I know that my milk is as fresh as you can get, and also I don't have to go out there in this COVID situation every day to get milk.
Services like Alan's have sprung up across the country. Early into lockdown, some 3 million people either ordered food from a local farm for the very first time or joined a scheme to get a fresh vegetable box delivered. So have we developed new habits?
Being able to talk to a farmer directly who deals with the cows, you know, firsthand is a great boon.
Getting our local supplies is really important.
Morning.
Having the daily conversations when it's delivered.
Alan has used word of mouth to drum up business. Others have gone digital, setting up online community forums, hoping that technology will help keep customers faithful.
I set up Deal Delivers in the first week of lockdown, and the Facebook group got 2,000 new members, I think, in a week and a half, and the website has now had maybe 15,000 visitors, but during peak lockdown it was getting 1,000 visitors a day. So this is the local fish shop, and they were so busy during lockdown with deliveries that they had to change all their trading hours. And I think the deliveries really saved them because all the restaurants that they were supplying closed.
Now more than 100 businesses are using the platform, many offering home deliveries for the first time.
I would love to see more hyperlocal delivery websites across the UK. We've got Reigate, Ashford, Four Heatons and even Dulwich, all using the same template.
Projects have also sprung up across communities to serve the most basic need, helping families get any food at all.
People's activism has started to mobilise around making sure that everybody has access to fresh, nutritious, affordable food. And that's new, and I don't think that's going to go away.
This supply centre is now a hub for 30 food banks across North London.
At the beginning of this pandemic, when everyone was going out and panic buying, that wasn't an option for a lot of our families. Could you get me some of that pasta?
Any particular time?
Yeah, can I get loads of the spaghetti, please? Yeah, we need that spaghetti. The kids love a bolognese. A lot of the families that we're working with now, they're new to us. So there's a lot of families that have newly come into hardships as a result of the lockdown. A lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of people have been furloughed. So we are seeing an increase in the amount of food that we need to hand out. Some of this food has actually come from pubs and restaurants that weren't actually able to open up. The individual donations have gone down, so people are not donating. But on the flip side of that, the good side is that we've had loads of companies that weren't able to use their food that have given us food that we can now hand out.
Henry Dimbleby is one of the founders of the restaurant chain Leon. He's heading a government-commissioned review of our whole food and farming system. For him, the lessons of lockdown have been stark.
We know that about 4.7 million people in the early days of the virus couldn't access food, skipped meals, either because logistically they couldn't get it, but of those 4.7, 1.7 to 1.8 couldn't afford to buy the food that they needed, and so skipped meals because they couldn't afford it. And as we come out of the summer into autumn, as the furlough unrolls in October, it's clear to me that there are going to be people who find that actually they don't have jobs to go back to. And for those people, that food poverty, that food insecurity is going to rise. You know, we're at the beginning of a very, very unequal time in terms of our food system.
Now, because we are no longer eating as many meals out, the hospitality sector is facing its own crisis.
The most important thing for hospitality is to get the sector back on its feet. There is no society without hospitality. Hospitality sits in every village, in every town, in every city. We build our societies around hospitality, and if that goes, we will have lost something that will take a long time to recover.
Here, in the East Yorkshire town of Bridlington, before COVID, there was a busy restaurant trade. It's a town built on the success of its fishing industry. They call it the lobster capital of Europe, landing around £4 million worth every year.
A lot of our product goes into the restaurant chain, goes into the hospitality industry, and with those shut in the UK and across Europe, there simply wasn't the market.
The fact is, not many of us go into the supermarket and buy a lobster.
No, we don't. I think during lockdown, people have got a little more adventurous with their food, so hopefully one of the positive outcomes of this is that people will buy more of our product locally.
Marco is a welcome sight. His truck normally comes once a week to collect lobster destined for fine dining in Paris and elsewhere in Europe.
So where will all these lobsters go? 60% stay for the French market, and the 40% rest it is for usually Italy, Spain and Portugal. How is that market doing now? Is it beginning to recover? It's the first week when the lockdown finished, everybody said, oh yes, we go to the restaurant and the pub, but it is wrong because only the first day it was busy, and after everybody stay home now. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they don't want to go? Because at this moment you have to keep 1 meter between each other people, and it's not friendly. It's not what we want. We want to go to restaurant, all family, everybody happy, shakes hand, give a kiss, and that's it.
This was our upstairs restaurant area with 4 larger tables. Every weekend for 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks in advance, we was booked.
Rustics has been a popular neighbourhood restaurant for some time, serving fresh, locally caught produce.
Lockdown. It's heartbreaking. Tried to take the positive that it would only be for a few weeks. Those few weeks turned into a few more weeks, and it's been really scary times.
Now the government is encouraging restaurants to open up again and offering financial support to do so. But there are still challenges. The biggest of them, social distancing.
for us to be able to work at 50% capacity. We just wouldn't survive. You know, at 4 tables upstairs, we would have 4 downstairs, but only use 2 at one time anyway. So to half that, we just wouldn't be able to open the doors. It just would not work for us.
So they've adapted, reopening as a street food venue, selling the same menu.
Some of the seafood items that we've got on the menu are the lobster rolls, and then there would be the Singapore-style crab noodles, all using Bredlington crab and Bredlington lobster.
But to take away.
I think people will have to adapt and evolve and make changes, definitely, in order to survive. There's going to have to be a different way a different style of eating out. You know, actually eating out the door rather than it sitting in. So that part of our logo, motto, I suppose, we're going to be saying is quality eats without the seats, sort of thing. So I think a lot of places are going to have to do the same.
And many have.
Hello, ma'am. What can I do for you?
Hi. What have you got today?
I've got jerk chicken, I've got curried goat, I've got escovitch fish, and jerk pork.
Oh, and can I have some fish?
This is my jerk sauce I made. That's how I just make sure it doesn't go dry. Oh, yeah.
In Kent, Chef Dexter is now reaping the rewards.
I've been a chef for 16 years now, so being in lockdown actually puts me in a situation where I've never been before.
Dexter,
yes?
I've got a new order.
Call it a tropical slaw. We've got watermelon, ginger, coconut, and cabbage.
He's set up a street food and delivery service.
Within minutes, I got people coming, calling for orders.
And the business is booming.
It's really, really opened doors for me, and I'm very grateful.
But for some of the bigger beasts of the restaurant trade, surviving has been more of a challenge. Very familiar chains have closed doors and others are on the brink. Since the 1st of April, more than 1,200 restaurants have shut down and the sector's shed more than 17,000 jobs.
All right, guys, welcome. Is anyone excited? Yeah. Yes. Awesome.
This is Brewdog, a £1 billion food and drink business with 104 bars spread across 20 countries.
We lost 70% of our revenue overnight.
When COVID hit, it was like a wrecking ball.
Which is millions for us. And actually, we're reasonably diverse as a business because we brew our own beer, we sell beer to supermarkets, we're international.
This branch has just reopened.
I was really nervous getting back into it at first, but it's all right now. Thank you.
So nice to see you back
This is our local. So we've been walking past just to check out when it was going to be open again, aren't we? So, yeah, very excited. And it's not just the fact that the bars are open, it's the whole meeting up with other people as well. So.
You only hear the same stories so many times, don't you? So to hear fresh stories would be amazing.
Another big rock in the road for places like this is working from home. A killer for businesses relying on the lunchtime sandwich or an after-office pint.
We're in a predominantly office-led part of London, and this business thrives when people leave the office at 5 o'clock and grab a bite to eat and a beer. I can't see that happening in this area anywhere near the levels that it was before, certainly into next year.
An industry that was once responsible for around 30% of food consumption is now cautioning that in city centres in particular, it will struggle to get business back to even half of what it was by September. To help things move along, now the Treasury is helping pay for us to eat out.
Can I go for the avocado feta bowl, please? And because the government's helping out, I'll have a bit of halloumi with that.
No problem.
Oh, great. Yeah. Lovely.
Can I get you anything else?
No, I'm cool. Thanks very much indeed. That's lovely. On Mondays to Wednesdays throughout August, the government will pick up half the cost of your meal, up to a maximum discount of £10. Now, that's an eye-catching offer, but will it really be enough to prop up the multi-billion-pound hospitality industry? Well, they might have their work cut out, as research done just days before the scheme launched suggested that only 15% of people were happy to go out for a restaurant meal. 18% said they might go in a month, and 23% said they'd be more willing to eat out later in the year.
We need to address the fear of going out, and we need to do that in a way that customers feel as though we're being, safe and steady and respectful, and that we put their well-being at heart. But we do need to seriously address the fear of going out into leisure, into hospitality, into retail over the months ahead, if these crucial parts of our economy are going to reopen, and reopen in a way that is successful.
Across the industry, the expectation is that it will take time to get business back to how it was.
We are expecting and planning that we are going to take minimum 18 months to get back to the sort of revenue levels in our pubs that we experienced prior to COVID. And what we've seen in most countries where we reopen is that we reopen around about 50% of normal revenue. We don't make any money until we get to 80%. So there's a difficult, hard pathway ahead for hospitality businesses.
A lot depends on whether we see a smooth return to normality or whether changes that we made to the way we eat will stick.
We have lost a couple of customers who won't come back, and we've just got to see how the rest of this summer goes before we start to make any hard plans. Although the supermarket trade is up.
So what lessons should we take from our food habits during lockdown?
I think that's probably food supply chains are, generally speaking, really quite agile and flexible and adaptable. What they don't like is very short, sharp shocks, and that's exactly what it got back in kind of late March and early April.
And the man writing the government's food strategy thinks we should prepare for more such shocks.
We need to think about how we make the system more robust. As we saw at the beginning of March, when people become a little anxious, they put something aside, put a little extra into the larder. And I actually think there's a very good argument that we as a country might do that as well. And this would have sounded insane if I had said this in January or February. It might actually mean literal stockpiling.
Some might say this is a dress rehearsal for us to start thinking very, very hard about what a really resilient system has to be. And I think one of the things that we're learning right now is that it's back to the local, it's back to communities.
And it's a measure of the impact of COVID on our food system that we're now worrying where our next meal is coming from.
Stay with us here on BBC One this Monday night as we've some juicy secrets from the Square. Tiffany, Keegan and Karen, EastEnders in Stacey's Hot Seat next.